Now, it has become one of the country's major security threats since time immemorial. It resurfaced a couple of years ago, generating a lot of commentary on how best to end the menace on the national level. On Monday, 3 soldiers and a police officer were shot and badly wounded, as was just reported, as a result of yet another clash between herdsmen and residents. The incident has brought back conversations on the need to nip this problem rearing its head again in the bud. But how? And why do we seem to be far from dealing with this nomadic herdsmen challenge once and for all? Well, early last year, governments put together a committee to foresee the implementation of a cattle ranching project established to address the herdsmen threat. What have they done so far? What have they been doing? And how far have they come in tackling the problem? Dr. Opong Anane is the chair of the Cattle Ranching Committee, and he's joined me in the studio to give us some answers. You're welcome, Dr. Anane.
Thank you.
We'll also be joined on the line by the regional chief of the Fulani herdsmen in the Ashanti region, Osman bin Ahmed, for his perspectives on this all-important conversation. But let's start with you, Doctor. Why are we still grappling with this nomadic herdsmen challenge?
Well, unfortunately, it has been a big problem that needs to be solved once and for all. And it's for that matter that the government set up the Ghana Cattle Ranching Project Committee to understudy what is happening and come out with a lasting solution, to the herdsmen, crop farmers conflict, and also find a way to enhance domestic cattle production.
So, you've been studying this problem for the past year?
Well, for part of the year.
For part of the year?
Yes, because it was launched in July last year.
Yes. So, some 5-6 months. What have you observed so far?
Well, the program is ongoing, but we are looking at ways, to find a solution, as I said. And we have met a number of stakeholders, across, including the herdsmen, the Ghana Cattle Ranchers, National Ghana Cattle Farmers Association. We've talked to some chiefs, we met NGOs and so on, as well as other people involved in the cattle farming in this country, to listen to them and then together find a solution. Because we don't want it to be up-down approach, but everybody has to be included in finding the solution. So this is what we've been working out, and we are optimistic that we'll come out with a lasting solution.
So for the past 5 months that you've been working, you don't have an idea how this problem can be solved?
Oh, we do have an idea, but we still need, the interaction. For instance, we have 2 groups of herdsmen. We have the cross-border or the migrant transhumans that come from other countries, the northern part of Africa. And then we have the indigenous transhumans who also move from one place to the other. And we're getting problems for all of them. But there are ways of ensuring that this doesn't happen. The migrant transhumans is an annual business that they do. At certain times of the year, they don't have any pasture nor much water, and therefore they go to the coastal countries in order to get feed and water. But there is a protocol that must be followed. And then there's something what the government also has to do. And when both of these are done, then I don't see why there should be any problem whatsoever.
So it's up to governments to follow the laid-down procedures, from what you're saying?
Yeah, that is right. So that's why the Ghana Cattle Ranching Project Committee was set up, to come out with the modalities and ensure that they are implemented.
So what have you done so far in coming out with these modalities?
Well, as I said, we've had a lot of interactions, to find out the best way to go about with it. We've also visited some grazing areas. I mean, we've been to the Afram Plains where fodder banks have been developed to find out how they can be appropriately utilized, for for both the transhuman cattle, migrant as well as our own transhuman cattle, and then the indigenous ones. And also source lands which can be set up as grazing lands with the appropriate facilities, where the animals can come in and have feed and water. And also other problem that needs to be looked at. For instance, from their country, how do they get to the Ghana? They ought to go through appropriate entry point, which will be monitored. There ought to be corridor to the grazing lands. And I just heard on the TV, when a few minutes ago, somebody was talking about one person looking after a whole herd of cattle, and that is wrong. The protocol says that there ought to be one adult above the age of 18 for every 50 cattle. And therefore, if you have 100, 200 cattle and you have only 2 herdsmen, definitely they can take good care of them. So these are some of the issues that we need to look at and ensure that the right things are done.
Now, we are talking about what we have to do and what we have to do. When will we do it?
Well, we've started working on it. And I'm very, very optimistic that this year we will see measures on the ground.
What time this year?
Well, I can't give you exact time, but definitely the government is very much concerned, and they are making sure that the appropriate things are done. And members of the Ghana Cattle Ranching Project Committee are also very much concerned, and we are ready to go to the field. We've already started to ensure that by the close of the year, the appropriate things will have been done, so that next year we will now hear what we are hearing now.
When you say the appropriate things have been done, what are you talking about?
We need to get reserves, grazing lands. We need to come out with corridors where the animals will have passed through. We need to have resting points. For instance, if cattle are coming from across Burkina Faso border with Ghana, and they are going to the Frem Prince, assuming that's where they are going to, they can't do that in a day. And therefore, there ought to be a corridor, and where they will rest, where there will be feed and water. And wherever they are going, we also have to make sure that there's feed and water, so that they don't get out, to graze on other people's ground. And we can easily do that. For instance, the crop residues that we burn in this country, the maize after harvesting, rice stalk, and these are what is being used in other countries for feeding livestock, and they are very good feed. In fact, if we are able to collect that and then give them to the cattle, we would be able to probably keep about 20 times the cattle we have in this country. We have adequate feed. It's only that we haven't made use of them. And these are some of the measures we want to put in place and make sure that feed are provided more or less on commercial basis. Because talking to the herdsmen, they are prepared to pay for the feed and the use of resources, such as water. They are prepared to do that. But if it's not provided to them, then that's where we get all these problems.
So you will have these measures in place this year?
We are optimistic that we will have measures put in place this year.
And you are talking about putting designated grazing grounds and corridors and resting points. But in Agogo, for instance, where this developed just this week, there were grazing grounds. There were designated grazing grounds. The herdsmen refused to stay there. They chose to go and destroy people's farms.
Yeah. Well, I'm not very sure whether they were migrant herdsmen or indigenous herdsmen. But even when you take the ECOWAS protocol, that, for instance, if they refuse to do what ought to be done, the protocol allows us to apprehend, seize the animals. And when this is done, people will then tend to do the right things. But as it is, everybody seems to do whatever they like. And this is what we have to pray. For instance, if they are at Agogo, the area of land for the grazing, how big is it? How many animals can that take? And before they come in, Ghana government has to decide how many animals can enter the country and where they must go. Not that they just get up and go anywhere. So assuming the land available at Agogo can take only 1,000 animals, and then we allow only 1,000 animals, then that problem wouldn't arise.
But the law is the law. If they themselves have agreed to stay in these designated areas, so whether or not the areas are big enough, shouldn't it be about obeying what the law says?
Yeah, that ought to be the reason. They have to obey. But again, there must be adequate feed. And that's what I was saying. If we can get the private sector to come in, collect all this huge quantity of feed, crop residues that go to waste, and settle them, then they'll be prepared to buy and they'll have adequate feed. It's only at times they don't get adequate feed. So they stray to other places. And again, because they also don't have adequate herdsmen. As I said, every 50 cattle must have one herdsman, and they don't do that. You see, so these are things that we have to ensure. Even before they enter the country, if there's a herd has 200 animals, then we ensure that there are a minimum of 4 herders with them. But this is not done at the moment. And we are going to ensure that it is done.
Looking at how the problem is being dealt with currently, I see a lot of fragmented efforts. Recently, we had in the Eastern region, the Eastern Regional Minister announcing that they're going to meet with all the nomadic herdsmen in the area. Now, in Agogo, in the Ashanti region, we have people demanding for the transfer of the police officer. And there are different things happening in different places. With all of these developments that are going on, what is the Ranch Projects Committee playing any role in there?
Well, yes and no. Because, I mean, what happened at Agogo, right, recently, we are not involved. But we have a national committee. But very soon, we are going to have regional and district committees that we will coordinate and then get to know whatever is happening. And then, in that case, we would ensure that anything that's happened at the head office, the national committee will also get to know and bring in our input at the appropriate time.
But you see, sir, this issue in Agogo, for instance, one would have thought that as a committee that is committed to making sure that these clashes do not occur again, you would be more on the ground there, because it's one of the hot spots that have been around for about 3-4 years, at least, with reported incidents of violence in the recent years.
Yeah, you are right. The committee was set up not too long ago, and we started being on the ground. As I indicated, we've been in the Afram Prince. And the next place that we need to go is Agogo. And we are definitely going to do that.
But you haven't been to Agogo?
Well, some members have been there, but not as a committee. And that ought to be done.
Why
as
not?
Early as possible.
Why not?
It's going to be done as early as possible.
But why was it not done?
Well, there were a few problems that have been solved now, and we are going to be there and ensure that the right things are done. Together with the community, we are creating awareness, not only with the community, but as far as the herdsmen. And as I said, we have some of their members in our committee. People can easily get to them and then communicate with them. Right. And then there's an understanding.
Which problems prevented you? You said you had a few problems to have been solved. Which problems were there?
Well, I cannot go into that right now, but the problems are being resolved. I can't go into the problems right now. But I'm assuring you that this year, things are going to be appropriately done, and the problems that we've been hearing of are not going to be like that again.
Let's go on the phone lines and speak with Osman bin Ahmed. He's the regional chief of the Fulanis in the Ashanti region. Of course, the nomadic herdsmen are known to be, some of them are known to be Fulani. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. Please raise your voice.
Yeah, you are speaking to Osman bin Ahmed.
Yes. With the developments that have been happening so far, what would be a permanent solution for you?
Yeah, thank you very much for bringing me on this. And I think the first thing is for us to identify the cattle owners at Agogo. Now, if you identify them, we have their contact number. We look at the location that they have their cattle. From there, we will know how many herdsmen is each cattle owner having. For your information, not all of them are Fulanis, as you just said. Some of the cattle owners are not Fulani. So if we look at it, we now identify the locations at which they are, we can then know that Mr. A, B, C, D are here. Then from there, we can look at the next step. That is, if they are aliens, then we bring in the immigration to try and regulate their stay. Now we should, because the cattle are just too many, that is the problem. Then we try and encourage them to start getting land for themselves. Because you can't have about 1,000, 2,000 cattle without a land. I mean, a situation where a cattle goes and destroys people's farm it's not something that we all agree to it. So there should be a situation where we can encourage them to start getting land for themselves, and then we see how best they can bring in this kind of ranching things that they are talking about.
Seb, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, because I've asked this once to Dr. Anane, lands were given to these nomadic herdsmen at Agogo, and they were outside the allotted land. Why do you think so?
Well, I can't hear you clearly, but I've also seen searching Fulani herdsman. It's never so. You better change it, because I'm not a herdsman myself.
Okay.
So you better change the
yes, you are the
title.
chief of the Fulani community.
Let me hear you.
You are the chief of the Fulani community. Yeah,
in
right.
Ashanti region, not the herdsman, my friend.
Right. Fair enough, sir. The question was that there were allocations of land given to these people, and the people were found outside the land. Now, you are talking about people being allocated land as a solution. That has been done. It's not working.
Well, I think possibly maybe they haven't done it properly, excuse me to say, or there are certain lapses because of the communication gap. Because you could realize that most of my people cannot speak our Ghanaian language. So possibly it's the communication which has not been done very properly. And then number two, maybe they have not identified the real cattle owners. Maybe they are only looking, their mind is on the herdsmen. The herdsmen don't have a cattle. It's not that the cattle owners are there. The herdsmen are just laborers taking care of those animals. So I can say we need to revisit that aspect again and look at how best we can do the thing properly.
The last time that we had a conversation about this issue, you had been given an ultimatum. The nomadic herdsmen had been given an ultimatum to leave the Agogo community, and you had asked for an extension for 1 week. What's the latest on that?
Frankly, the dancer called me for a meeting, and I was part of the meeting. We said that they should go. That was the first option, that every cattle dealer should go, every cattle owner should go and register. And then me and the chief executive had it that they would just, we set up a desk at the district assembly. About 28 of them went in and then registered. We are trying to encourage more of them to register with their particulars, like their telephone number, where they were grazing their animals and all these things. But then I can say that there was a rush within just immediately after the 2 weeks. They just went, the military, what I heard, they went there and started shooting the animals. Do you think that killing the animals will solve the problem? No, we need to know the cattle owners, like what we started. So it's about time and patience. Since they've waited for years with all this problem, why should they give you 2 weeks and then say that after 2 weeks we'll start killing the animals? It's not the wise decision. I've always been telling my dear brother, the MP, because I like him. He's my good friend, but sometimes he's very stubborn. The way he is doing it, that is not the best. Even this morning, I had a chat with the chief executive. I mean, all these things, they shouldn't. If you give a political promise to people that you are going to flash people out, we have to take time. Don't go by your political ideas. Politics is different. The animals are resources of the country, so they have to know how to handle the issue. And then we have about 40,000 cattle at Agogo. How do we just give them 1 week or 2 weeks for them to move? Where are they moving to? We need to get a place for them before we can send them out. And then some of them, like I said, are Ghanaians. He's a Ghanaian, so where do you want to? Is he to take the animals to a different country? No. So he needs to have an alternative. So I can say they rush to taking this decision. I don't support what they did. Even though I don't also like what the cattle farmers are doing, destroying people's farms, I would not allow that. It's not the best for us.
Sir, but you say you don't support what you did, but on this platform, in fact, on this program, you had agreed to it and said, we'll try and relocate them. Give us 1 more week.
Yes, I said that they should give us about a month. 1 month is not 2 weeks. 1 month is never 2 weeks, so there should be enough time for this thing to happen.
Do you think that?
Yeah, the movement of animals is not a one-day business. So I mean, they should find a way of wherever they are going.
Do you think, sir, that looking at the number of cattle you have, 40,000 cattle, do you honestly believe that they can ever be totally evacuated from the Agogo area?
Well, there are some who are already Agogo. They were in Agogo for years, so it's not about them moving. What we have to let them know is they have to fence their animals. They have to bring in all those things like water and everything for their animals. That is why I said they should start with the registration for us to identify those with cattle. For your information, somebody will be a Ghanaian, he doesn't even want to fence his animals. So at the end of the day, we need to know who owns those cattle. Where are the cattle based? Is it at Patabai or is it at those kind of places that they all call? So that we can know where they are and then we see how best to do it. But they don't, cattle will always be at Agogo. That one, whether you like it or not, that is the gospel truth. Let us all be clear with ourselves. Cattle will always be at Agogo. So the only thing we need to find a way of modernizing the system so that they don't create problems. There's no problem between them and then the crop farmers.
Do you think the Member of Parliament and the Apia Kubi has come to terms with this fact you're talking about, that cattle will always
be? Apia Kubi, my brother, doesn't come into terms with everything that we communicate even at dawn on this thing. But he said that if we want any development, we should take it to our district. By district is at Menchia, we don't have we don't have any cattle here. So that is the way we need to know. We need to have a proper planning on this evacuation, not just, and they are not living. The only thing, those who are there, we should find a way of modernizing their system and regulating their system. That is the best.
You seem to think that the Member of Parliament has a great role to play in this.
He has to realize that he's ruling everybody. He is our father at the Parliament. So if anything happening, they shouldn't always be looking at the crop farmers. We should also look at the interest of the cattle farmer, and then we try to talk to them so that they live and coexist in peace.
You think he's playing a role in these clashes?
He is becoming one-sided. My brother is not doing the right thing. He's becoming one-sided. He's looking at it at the crop. I know the crop farmers are complaining, and they have a genuine complaint. But for this operation, most of the animals were not even around the crop farmers. They were far. The military and the police chased them to wherever they had to go and kill the animal, which is not the best. And then at first they started by killing and taking the carcasses away. Do we call that a flushing or robbery?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Osman bin Ahmed. And he is the chief of the Fulani community in the Ashanti region. We are still talking about this nomadic herdsmen menace, and we have with us here Dr. Anani of the cattle ranching project. You want to respond to some of the statements that were made?
Yes, I do. Well, he mentioned that there are about 40,000 head of cattle in the Agogo area. And the type of vegetation that we have, we need about 5 acres, 2 hectares or 1 acre for 1 cow or bull. So in this case, we are talking about 200,000 acres, which is just not available. But under the type of ranching that we want to do and introduce, instead of the 200,000 acres, we can use 1,000 acres, to hold all that cattle and feed them very, very well so that they will perform very well.
And we'll see this done this year?
We are going to start.
Do you have the money to do this?
Well, I believe the government is so much concerned that they would come out with the resources to do it.
But what's the budget for carrying out the project?
Well, the budget has been submitted to the government, but I don't think it's appropriate for me now for me to talk about the budget here. But it's been submitted, and as far as I know, it's been approved, and so we are going to work.
Yeah, but at least Ghanaians deserve to know how much of their taxpayers' money is going to be used to solve this problem, isn't it?
Well, I agree with you, but unfortunately, I cannot make that available right now.
Dr. Anani works with the Cattle Ranchers Project. Right. I guess Cattle Ranch Project Committee.
Cattle Ranching Project Committee.
Thank you very much. Ghana Cattle Ranching Project Committee. Thank you very much for joining us.